Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een, everybody. Good to see you, alhamdulillah. Our third night here. May Allah Ta'ala accept from us, inshallah. May Allah use these moments and seconds that we're, dedicating to Him and devoting to Him, as small as they may be. May Allah Ta'ala magnify them on our scale. May Allah Ta'ala count every single person in this gathering as those that have come here for His sake, and that when you leave these doors, the angels write your name as those that have been freed from the hellfire. May Allah Ta'ala give us, inshaAllah, the reward of all of the good that we intended to do, even if we weren't able to do it. May Allah Ta'ala protect us from all of the consequences of the sins that we struggle with, even if we regretted it, and even if we fell short, we ask you, Allah, to overlook them. Ameen, ameen, ya Rabbil Alameen. Tonight, inshaAllah, we're going to be going over a really sobering dua, in the sense that some du'as you make to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you make those du'as with the aspiration to be on the receiving end of some type of, material or spiritual gift. And some du'as you make to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what you're asking for is for Allah to give you perspective and steadfastness and trust and patience, right? Last night we talked a little bit about that, of course, but there was still a very active component. But tonight's dua that we're going to be discussing, inshallah, with you here tonight is a dua that focuses on really asking Allah to take care of your affairs and to handle your situation, and to really, in its own strange way, subhanallah, you're asking Allah just to offload the stress of trial, of difficulty, of tribulation, of controversy, of confrontation, and you're asking Allah simply to deliver His justice and His fairness in a moment where you maybe feel overwhelmed by the difficulties that are upon you. And I know all of us can relate to some degree. Obviously, as an ummah, we can see this now since, not October, but for the last, 75 years plus October, as they say. We see the affliction of tyranny and of injustice upon, for example, our brothers and sisters in Palestine. We also see it worldwide, depending on the area that you're from. You may be more informed about different conflicts, whether it be Sudan, whether it be in Burma, whether it be in Bangladesh, whether it be in the Uyghur Muslim community in China that's being oppressed. All of these different forms of oppression, it's almost as if you're a Muslim, you are synonymous with the idea of being an oppressed people, because you've witnessed it your entire life. I mean, how many of you growing up, fundraisers were all surrounding like humanitarian relief? And for us, it's like normal. Like we literally have like Islamic relief. It's not a plug, but it just is what it is. Islamic relief. Why? Because Muslims have always been charged and mandated with the responsibility of taking care of those that are being oppressed. But we've also all seen the unfortunate trauma and tragedy of Muslim communities that are oppressed. And so the dua gives us healing when it comes to these moments. And so Shaykh, inshallah, is going to open for us and give us the perspective and the thought and the mental framework for how to understand this dua, inshallah.
Bismillahi walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. So the dua that we're going to study here tonight and reflect upon really is in Surah Al-A'raf, Surah number 7, in verse number 89. However, this dua is embedded within all the dua, just like all the rest of the duas that we're going to be reflecting upon in this series. This dua is embedded within a story of the Quran. And that really helps to give it perspective. It makes it more relatable. And this particular story is the story of the Prophet Shu'ayb alayhi salam. The Prophet Shu'ayb alayhi salam was sent to a people, and these people, it was a very large tribe. So they had a lot of numbers. It was a very affluent community. It was a very huge community. So they were very blessed in that sense. They enjoyed a lot of those worldly blessings, right? They were numerous, they were strong, they were united, they were collected. They were also blessed with natural resources. They lived in the hills and the forests, right? Very, very beautiful, picturesque. They had no shortage of food. They had no shortage of water. So they really lived this idyllic kind of existence and lifestyle. But the problem was that, number one, they did not believe in Allah. So that has to be corrected. But there's something that comes to light within that story. When the Prophet Shu'ayb alayhi salam comes to them, he's from amongst them, and when he addresses his people and he says, believe in Allah, and he has all the proof and the evidence and the revelation from Allah, there's really no reason not to believe. They were pagans, they worshipped, like they had some ancient trees or something like that they worshipped, right? But that makes no sense. Why do you worship a tree, right? And so they really had no response to that. But they refused and they resisted. And they dug their heels in. And they fought him. And we're going to talk about some of the things that they did. And the real reason why they were not willing to admit, accept, believe was because it would have required them to compromise. It would have required them to stop living their lives the way that they had become accustomed to, and to stop engaging in the kinds of behavior that they were engaging in. Now, what was really the problematic behavior they engaged in? And in a word, and that word is used in the Quran as well, is fasad. They were addicted to corruption. Specifically, the Prophet is advising them, أوفوا الكيل والميزان ولا تبخسوا الناس أشياءهم. Look, when you deal, and a lot of times when you make business deals, it's either in volume or it's in weight. It's either in volume or in weight. And so he's telling them that, look, when you are engaging in business and exchanging goods, be honest about the volume, be honest about the weight, because they used to cheat. وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُم. And then it didn't stop there. Then it became a whole culture of corruption. Taking things from people, lying to people, cheating people out of their what is rightfully theirs. Okay, always trying to have a scheme, always scheming. There's always some kind of a scheme. And they were always scheming, and they were always trying to undercut one another, and it had become their dominant culture. And then corruption comes in. And how does corruption come in? Corruption further comes in that, okay, how do I continue to get away with all this? Right? How can I keep getting away with this? So then what you naturally start doing is you start buying people off. Bribery, rishwa. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ says, Ar-Rashi wal-Murtashi kilahuma fin-nar. The person who gives bribery and the person who takes bribery, both of them go to hell. The Prophet ﷺ said this, not me. The Prophet ﷺ said this. Right? So it's because it just completely rots a society out from the inside. You know how termites will eat something in from the inside and hollow it out? That's what corruption does to a society. It just eats it out, hollows it out, and then one day, all of society comes crashing down. Everyone's like, what happened? What do you think happened? You hollowed it out. There was nothing left. There was no integrity. Nobody trusted anybody. Nobody could do anything. So you had corruption. Okay, that was the sin. But then it doesn't stop there. Then when the Prophet Shu'ayb alayhi salam is telling them, like, guys, this is a bad idea. This is sinful in the eyes of God, and this is detrimental to you and your future and your community. Stop this now. Cease and desist. Not only did they not listen, but what did they do? Number 2, وَلَا تَقْعُدُوا بِكُلِّ صِرَاطٍ. Ayah number 86, Allah talks about it. Then they engaged in intimidation. So I'm committing the sin. He's advising me and telling me why it's bad for me. Not only do I not listen, not only do I keep doing it, but then I start threatening and intimidating him. I start bullying him. They better not say anything. You know, there's an expression in Urdu that's really appropriate here. Chori persina zori. Okay?
Oh yeah, it's my favorite.
Yeah, it's my favorite. I get
Love
it.
that one.
I love it. So, Chori, like...
I went to high school with Chori. Him and Persina Zori.
So
You made me this way. You think I like doing this?
So it's like you rob somebody, and when they're kind of like, hey, you took my stuff, and then you start slapping them around. What'd you say? You know? You do something, I take his phone, and then he's like, hey, that's my phone.
It's gaslighting.
Oh, that's what it's called?
I mean, yeah.
Okay. Very nice.
You hurt someone, then you blame them for
Yeah.
for you hurting them. That's
Yeah.
gaslighting.
Exactly. There you go. Whatever he said, right? So I'm not allowed to use terms after a certain year. But no, so that's exactly it. This gaslighting. I took his phone, and then he's kind of like, hey, give me my phone back. And then I start slapping him, pushing him, punking him. What'd you say to me? Right? So that's what they started doing with the Prophet Shu'ayb, with the good people who are kind of like, guys, don't do this. Guys, it's a bad idea. Guys, why are you doing this? Then they start sitting outside of their homes. They start sitting outside of their workplaces. تَقْعُدُوا بِكُلِّ صِرَاطٍ تُوعِدُونَ, threatening them. وَتَصُدُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. You say anything. If I ever hear you say anything ever again, watch what I do to you. And so that was the second thing. And then when the Prophet Shu'ayb alayhi salam, he didn't stop. He kept on preaching to them. He kept on telling them. And he said even, فَاصْبِرُوا. He told the believers who were being intimidated, who were being threatened, who were being bullied, who were being gaslighted, I guess, right? فَاصْبِرُوا. Be patient. حَتَّى يَحْكُمَ اللَّهُ بَيْنَنَا. The final decision and judgment is in the hands of Allah. وَهُوَ خَيْرُ الْحَاكِمِينَ. And Allah is the best of judges. Then they came to Shu'ayb alayhi salam. Now what comes after that intimidation? Then it gets to outright violence. Then it becomes violence. So they came to him and they said, لَنُخْرِجَنَّكَ يَا شُعَيْبُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مَعَكَ مِنْ قَرْيَتِنَا أَوْ لَتَعُودُنَّ فِي مِلَّتِنَا. They came to them finally, they surrounded them, with their weapons drawn. And they said, Shu'ayb, and your little crew, you have two choices. Number one, either you just completely disavow everything you preach and everything you believe and everything you have said. You completely disavow all of it. And you say you were lying, you were wrong, it's not true. And you completely quietly come and stand on this side. Or we're going to kick you out of here. We're going to exile you and whatever else happens along the way. And we know that that's never a pleasant situation. And Shu'ayb alayhi salam, to confirm, are you guys really doing this now? He said, أَوَلَوْ كُنَّا كَارِهِينَ. Like even if we refuse? And they said, yes. So that's when Shu'ayb alayhi salam finally said, he said, the problem is, I can't do what you're asking me to do. So option A, just admit that you were lying and you were wrong, and just come stand here quietly, right? He's like, I can't do that. Because if I do that, I will be lying about what Allah has said. I'll be lying about what Allah has said. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved us from the corruption and the misery that you people live in. So he finally says, look, my Lord knows everything, and I trust my Lord. And then he made his dua. Then he raised his hands up to the sky, and he said, our Lord, iftah baynana. Decide between us wa bayna qawmina and these people bil haqq, with what is right. What is the truth? Decide amongst us once and for all who's right and who's wrong. They are now resorting to violence. Oh Allah, we are few in number. They are an entire civilization. They have the government, they have the money, they have the power, they have the weapons, they have the numbers, they have everything. We can't fight them. We can't resist them. We stood here. We did not budge. We will not be deterred. But oh Allah, based on the calculations and the numbers, we can't win this battle. So Allah, we ask you, you decide. وَأَنْتَ خَيْرُ الْفَاتِحِينَ. And Allah, you are the best judge and you are the only one who can grant true victory. True victory.
You want to keep going, Sheikh?
I was just going to say,
can, please.
The verses go on to tell us, and then Ustad will enlighten us. The verses go on to say, the people said, right, when they heard him making dua, like we see right now, right? Hasbi Allah, hasbun Allah wa ni'mal wakil. Right? When they heard Shu'ayb making the dua and his small band of believers saying Ameen, Ameen. The disbelievers, what did they say? The enemy, what did they say? لَإِنِ اتَّبَعْتُمْ شُعَيْبًا إِنَّكُمْ إِذًا لَخَاسِرُونَ. You follow him, you're going to end up dead like he is. You sure? You want to stay with him? You want to say Ameen, Ameen after him? You're going to end up dead and ruined just like he is. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just fast forwards, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says nothing that happened between then and next is even worth talking about. Allah just fast forwards, ayah number 91, فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الرَّجَفَةِ. Allah told Shu'ayb alayhi salam and the small humble group of believers to leave town, and then that whole big old kind of like area, that big beautiful area that we were talking about, the earth shook beneath their feet. فَأَصْبَحُوا فِي دِيَارِهِمْ جَاثِمِينَ. And in the morning time, they were all dead inside of their beautiful, luxurious homes. The same people who denied Shu'ayb, they had nothing to show for it. The same people who threatened Shu'ayb, they were the ones who lost at the end of the day. And then Shu'ayb alayhi salam, as he was walking away, he says, "Oh my people, I tried to preach to you. I tried to give you the message of my Lord. I really wanted what was best for you, but you didn't listen. So this is your final result." So this is the story of the Prophet Shu'ayb alayhi salam, his dua, and then what was the outcome of the dua.
Some really amazing, Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh. Some really amazing things if you look through some of the wording that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses when He describes a couple different things. Number one is that Allah ta'ala in the Quran, the sunnah of Allah is that He would send prophets to their own people. And one of the reasons why, the scholars mention, because Allah Ta'ala, He says, we would never send a messenger to a people, إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِهِمْ, that we would not send a messenger unless they were able to articulate in the language and the culture of their people. And so, Prophet Shu'ayb is coming to his people, and these are people that recognize him, that know him, that he speaks their language, he walks the walk, he talks the talk. He is absolutely one of them when it comes to identity, right? Like we can say national identity, but back then it was tribes. The same with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I mean, the mirroring for all prophets was identical in that these were people that were generally recognized amongst them as indigenous, right? Now, why is this powerful? It's powerful because sometimes we build assumptions into our psyche that if we're the same in other ways, then we'll believe the same things. And then when we find out that that's not the truth, we become devastated, we become hurt. If you ever meet somebody, for example, who's from your tribe or your village or your wherever, and they believe or they move in a different way than you do. And when I say move, I don't mean like preferentially, I mean like ethically. You almost feel hurt. Nobody wants to, for example, share the same lineage or the same region as somebody who's like a criminal. If you mention like, oh, this person's from this city, everyone's like, oh man, no one wants to share that because there is a certain honor in having your tribe or your people be noble. But all of the prophets had this very difficult job, alayhi salam, and that was what? To go and deliver the message to these very same people that they connected with in so many different ways. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here models for us a really important and difficult challenge, which is that it's our job to connect with the people that we are one of, that we are surrounded by. And I'm going to leave that up to you to think about what that means. Shu'ayb could not simply, in fact, it's more challenging, it's more difficult to go to the people that you know and to engage with them, to go to your coworkers and classmates. Many of us here, if I said, who wants to do a dawah table downtown? Who wants to stand and teach people about Islam? We probably would get a good amount of volunteers. But if I said, who wants to do a dawah table at their work? You'd be like, It's almost time for promotions and bonuses, right? But that is truly the prophetic challenge. The prophetic challenge is, are you able to engage with people, your family, your friends, your coworkers, your community, in a way where you can give them the message of Islam and really engage with them, because that's really your highest priority, those people that are around you. So Allah Ta'ala, He uses the word qawm when He describes the people of Shu'ayb, even though they're at odds, even though they're diametrically opposed, because here He's not talking about their alignment ethically or religiously. He's just saying from a tribal perspective, these are the same people. So number one. Number two is that we get this demonstration of a people attacking their prophet to know, what do they say? It do be your own people sometimes. Like, to show you, if sometimes it's your own, right? And that is not that should not be a deterrent. That should not be something that completely shuts you off. Just because you have alignment on certain cultural realities doesn't mean that those people are going to accept you. In fact, that might actually be a reason why they don't accept you. I mean, what did they say to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? They said, "Really? You?" Right? Which is like the most like distasteful and horrible thing that they could have said about Habib al-Mustafa. And interesting is that Allah gave him the name al-Mustafa, al-Mushtaba, the one who was chosen. Like they were like, "Why were you chosen?" And Allah is like, "Because I chose him." Like the naming is such a flex, right? He's the one who chose you through two methods, istafa and ishtaba, right? Like it's completely covered, the choosing of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sometimes the people that are closest to you are the ones that may not see the value in you. And likewise, are you ready for this? I know that made everyone feel good. You're like, yeah. Sometimes the people that you're closest to, you might not see the value in them. And it's very possible that we have people that are close to us that are, whether it's proximity, just ignore the screens, it's fine. Whether it's proximity, whether it's anything, and those people might actually have something good to share with us, to tell us, and we're discounting them. Why? Oh, I've known this person since they were a little kid. You guys should see when I'm with Sheikh Abdul Nasser and someone from Colleyville rose up. Sheikh Abdul Nasser here, if you say the word sheikh in this building, there's one person generally that everyone's talking about. But when a Colleyville uncle comes through, "Oh, Nasser beta, where are your glasses, beta?" Right? The guy sounds like Sean Connery, sounds like Bane. "Do you feel in charge, beta?" Right? Sheikh is in charge here, and they're like, "He's not in charge," right? Like, I remember when I used to, I was at your, your birthday, whatever, and it's so interesting. There's the inability. I say Colleyville but because that's where he spent his early years, leading Taraweeh and being there. There's almost a dissonance in being able to understand that just because you know this person, just because they're gar ki murgi dal barabar, huh? See, I got something. Just because, for those of you who are Arab, you're like, what? I see people looking around, they're like, it means that the chicken you eat at home is just like lentils outside the house. The things that are close to you, sometimes you equate them with lesser value just because their proximity, their accessibility, right? You take it for granted. So all the prophets of Allah were generally taken for granted. So if you ever feel taken for granted, you're going to have a great conversation with the prophets. May Allah Ta'ala give us that station with them. You're going to be able to talk to them about it. If you feel like, man, no one, like these people, I'm with them and like I could be there and I'm trying to help them, this and that, you're going to have a wonderful conversation with the prophets of Allah, because that is the sunnah of Allah, is that they first had to get over their own ego, right? Not that they even had it to begin with, but they had to get over their own ego, and that's what we have to do. No one, we don't deserve to be listened to, right? We have to earn that privilege. We have to earn that position in someone's life. And just because you're close to somebody doesn't mean that you're automatically going to be given that. And so in the dua itself, Shu'ayb says something very beautiful. Obviously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is memorializing it for us in the Quran. He says, وَسِعَ رَبُّنَا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His knowledge encompasses everything. And if that doesn't, for a person who's been wronged, that is the remedy. The remedy is the knowledge of Allah. Allah's knowledge encompasses everything. So much of the frustration when dealing with oppression is trying to advocate and broadcast and get people. I mean, how many of us, the Muslim Ummah, when you see the Muslim Ummah being oppressed over the past, your lifetime, how many of us felt that almost insanity in attending a gathering, a fundraiser, a dua, a program, seeing pictures and videos, and then having to go to Costco and seeing people buy 47 cinnamon rolls. Or going to work and seeing people talk about, oh, what are you doing this weekend? Did you watch the game? There's like a borderline insanity that you're feeling. Like, how is it possible? How is it possible that you can simply just go on with life? You can live your life as if nothing's happening? You're not seeing this? But this is why Shu'ayb says, when he's being oppressed, and his people, and those few that are with him, he says what? He says, وَسِعَ رَبُّنَا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا. Allah Ta'ala's knowledge, I don't have to explain anything to Allah. I'm not going to have to read back the transcript. I'm not going to have to, I don't have to take notes. I don't have to submit receipts. Allah Ta'ala has all the receipts. And for me, as a believer in Allah, that's enough. That's enough, man. Hasbunallah. Hasbunallah. Wa ni'mal wakil. I put all of my affairs and my trust and my pain and my anger and my rage, I deliver it to you, Allah, because you are the one who is the best disposer of affairs. Right? And I would rather have Allah take care of me and be my record keeper than me even myself. We forget, right? What happened, what someone said, what they did. Allah doesn't forget. Allah's knowledge is perfect. Our knowledge is deficient. Then he says, because of that, as a result of that, right? وَسِعَ رَبُّنَا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا عَلَى اللَّهِ تَوَكَّلْنَا. Because of that, I place all my trust in Him. I don't even trust, I would rather take Allah's quote unquote word over mine. This is why Umar, made the famous dua, oh Allah, don't leave me in charge of my own self. Even what? For the blink of an eye. طرفة عين. For the blink of an eye. I don't even want to be in charge of myself for this long. Because if I am, in my knowledge, I'm naqis, I'm deficient. You're perfect. Your knowledge of me is better than anything I can even decide. Do you guys have regrets? Anyone here have a regret? What is a regret? Okay, someone said I have a lot. It's not that kind of session, sister, right? We can talk. Me too, I'm with you, but I'm going to hold back, right? The reality is, look, a regret is what? A regret is the recognition of your humanity because you made the wrong choice. That's what a regret is. A regret is evidence. It's a trace of your humanness. Allah doesn't have regrets. There is no such thing for Allah. But for us, our life is defined by regrets. What if? So much so that the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ says that shaitan loves to use your regrets against you. What if? That's why Allah tells us in the Quran, فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. You can't let shaitan use your human weakness against you, but you have to admit it is there. So he says, عَلَى اللَّهِ تَوَكَّلْنَا رَبَّنَا افْتَحْ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَ قَوْمِنَا بِالْحَقِّ. This is like, I'm not even there. I'm not part of these people. I'm not the ones that are attacking Shu'ayb. I'm scared for them. You know what's interesting? When you see the enemies of Allah, they never pray to God for truth because they know they're liars. Do you see any of the Zionists are like, God, give us the true answer? No, they know that they are in. They know that they are done. They're aware of it. The guilt is written on the code of their existence, right? So they'll never seek justice, true justice from God. Because they're aware of that. The only people that seek true justice from God are those that truly know that justice is in their favor. And they ask God for that. Oh Allah, open up and give us and judge between us justly. Bilhaq wa anta khairul fatihin. And you are the best one who is the judge of these affairs. Okay? Last thing that I'll share that I thought was really powerful, subhanAllah. You see the fear coming from the language. Anytime, by the way, an enemy of a prophet is scared, you know what they do? Appeal to the masses. Fir'aun does this too. Anytime, Quraysh, call everybody, hey everyone, come look. Because why? Because it's sort of a deflection, it's a distraction. Instead of dealing with the actual substance of the argument at hand, they're going to try to get a mob mentality. Get more people. Yeah, exactly, like a Super Bowl ad. Allah Ta'ala destroy them, Ya Rabb. Ya Allah. They appeal towards, again, the numbers. So what do the people do? وَقَالَ الْمَلْأُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. These are the ones who are like, we are out. We don't believe in you, right? مِنْ قَوْمِهِ. Again, from his people. Emphasizing this again. They said what? They call to all the people, if you follow him, then you're from the losers as well. They're not trying to go logically one for one. They're not trying to say, well, we don't believe in God because of this. No. Just what? Just threats, empty threats, large threats, calling everybody. Just why? Because they're trying to deflect with fear. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at that point, he says what? The earthquake came and destroyed them instantly, left them lifeless in their own homes. فِي دَارِهِمْ جَاثِمِينَ. Just absolutely lifeless. Now, the interesting part that I wanted to share with you at the end is Shu'ayb, alayhi salam, his final parting moments. فَتَوَلَّى عَنْهُمْ وَقَالَ يَا قَوْمِ. When you read this, even in the Arabic, you don't see vengeance. You know, it's not how prophets are built. The prophets don't want destruction. We want justice, we want virtue, and if someone has dug their heels in against mercy and virtue, then if their destruction is the only way to return back to mercy and virtue, then it's a necessary evil. That's why what? In Islam, the default ruling for killing is what? Okay, that was scary. The default ruling for killing in Islam is? Let's go through this one more time. There's generally two rulings, permissible and impermissible. We're not going to talk about the other three, okay? Default ruling for killing is what? We need ijma' on this, guys, because the feds in here are watching, okay? It is haram. Repeat after me. The default ruling for killing is haram. The default ruling. Jeez, I am, okay. Qalam Institute, qalamacademy.com. Okay, we a lot of, okay, we're all there. Maybe, let's just say the question was bad. All right, for the CIA who's listening. All these people are beautiful, innocent people, mashallah. Okay, the default ruling for killing is, it's haram. It's haram. That's why when Allah Ta'ala says, إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ, except when it's done, I mean, literally in truth, but really what it's talking about is in a deserving or in a moment that calls for it. And that moment is against every grain and fiber of what the natural disposition of people is, but it's necessary. It's a necessary evil. For example, if someone comes up to you and tries to kill you and your family, at that point, the thought is not, how can I make sure that all of us walk out of here? No, at that point, you're like, I have my wife and my kids, I have my husband, I'm not thinking about the welfare of this person who's trying to kill me. Okay? May Allah protect us all from that fate. But you see here the heart of a prophet. And so even though we call for Allah to destroy a people that have done this, ultimately it would be better for them and for us if they repented and sought Allah. But if they commit and they determine themselves as being enemies of God, we ask for Allah to destroy them. That's the simple nature of it, right? But he says, فَتَوَلَّى عَنْهُمْ وَقَالَ يَا قَوْمِ. He says, I was sent to you. لَقَدْ أَبْلَغْتُكُمْ رِسَالَتِي رَبِّي. I was sent to you with the message of my Lord. And I thought, وَنَصَحْتُ, and I gave you this sincere advice, lakum. I delivered all of you this sincere advice. And then he says, because of the way this turned out, how can I be someone who really feels too torn up about this? I did my job. I did what I was supposed to do. I tried, I cried, I begged, I pleaded. I sought not for any payment, not for any reward, not for any gift. I just wanted to help. And you, because of your addictions and determination and your defiance and your intoxication with yourself, could not even spare me 30 seconds to wonder about what truly your soul and heart needed most. You were too in love with the hustle. You love scamming people. Immorality opened doors of material wealth for you that you said, I can't live without. And so he says, man, if I was giving you clean water and you drank sewage, at the end of the day, it hurts me, but it was your choice. And even though Shu'ayb is saying this to his people, he's really saying this to us too. Like the Prophet ﷺ could basically say the same thing to us. I came here, I was sent by Allah. I sincerely advised you with the message He gave me. It's going to hurt to see people fall away from Him, and he prophesized it. He said, I'm like a person who's trying to catch you, and you're like these small creatures that are flying towards the fire because you're enamored by it, and I can feel you. He described slipping through my fingers. Allah Ta'ala described him in the Quran. He says that the Prophet ﷺ is so soft-hearted that he cries for you and he feels your pain. The Prophet ﷺ, when he was reading one time with Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was reading to him, and he said that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Iqra alayya, read upon me." So then he read فَقَرَأَ مِن سُورَةِ النِّسَاء. He read from the chapter of Nisa, and he got to the ayah where Allah Ta'ala asked this very powerful question. How is it going to be when all of the nations are brought together on the Day of Judgment, and each of them is going to have a witness who has to stand against them? And he says, وَجِئْنَا بِكَ عَلَى هَؤُلَاءِ شَهِيدًا. And you, O Messenger, you are going to have to stand one day against your own people. Prophet ﷺ said, Hasbuk, that's enough. Abdullah looked up and he said, فَرَأَيْتُ عَيْنَاهُ تَذْرِفَانِ. I saw his eyes were overflowing with tears. Can you imagine the Prophet ﷺ who just said, I love hearing Quran? He says what? Please stop. What caused the Prophet ﷺ to say stop to the very recitation that he just moments prior said, I love to hear? The idea that every prophet is going to have to stand one day and is going to have to tell the truth about what his people did. Our job is to make sure that when it comes to that testimony, we don't have a footprint. Our job is to be so repentant and close to Allah that we're not on the list. We ask Allah Ta'ala to protect us. We ask Allah Ta'ala to make us those people that the Prophet ﷺ will be happy to see us, not sad to see us. And that those people that will be on the side of mercy and forgiveness. And we ask Allah Ta'ala to make us those people that truly live the message of our Prophet and of all the Prophets. Ameen, ameen, ya Rabbil Alameen. Sheikh, you want to give us some closing words?
The point that Ustad was making, spiritual growth is something that's uncomfortable. It's difficult, it's challenging, it's even more uncomfortable and more challenging and more difficult than any other kind of physical growth or anything. So spiritually improving ourselves can be very, very difficult. And the point that he was making about the prophets of Allah, right, that they didn't spike the football. Even when they were given the victory, they didn't then go and dance on their graves. They didn't spike the football. They didn't rub it in. They still lamented the idea that I wish you would have listened. After the Battle of Badr, the Prophet ﷺ said, لَقَدْ أَخْرَجَتْ قُرَيْشٌ إِلَيْكُمْ أَفْلَادَ كَبْدِهَا. Quraysh has brought forth all of its valuable assets. Every leader of Quraysh is here. And in the aftermath, when they were all dead in the battlefield and their bodies were put in the ground, there was an empty well or a ditch and they were all just, their bodies were thrown in there. The Prophet ﷺ actually stood at the edge of that well, that ditch. And then he said, why didn't you listen? Right? So there's something very beautiful and powerful, right? We love the success stories. We love the stories with a happy ending. But understand that when we preach and when we advocate and when we are trying to spread the good word, as they say, if it has to come from a place of genuineness. And we're going to have to keep working on ourselves. I'm not, it's very easy for me to say these words, but it's something that we have to keep working on. And focus on what he was talking about in terms of like cleaning our hearts and cleansing our hearts and channeling those prophetic, sentiments and values of really, really actually caring about the people and wanting what's best for all of humanity. The dua invoked a particular attribute of Allah, and I thought that I would end and conclude with this because it's always important. Allah tells us these are the nights of dua. قُلِ ادْعُوا اللَّهَ وَادْعُوا الرَّحْمَنَ أَيَّمَّا تَدْعُوا فَلَهُ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى. Call out to Him by calling Him Allah. Call out to Him by calling Him Ar-Rahman. Call out to Him however you may through His beautiful names and attributes. Right? So Allah has these names and attributes, the Asma'ullah al-Husna. So one particular name of attribute that is referred to in this ayah is Al-Fattah. And it means the one who opens that which was locked. The one who gives that which was not available previously. The one who opens the things that were concealed, that we weren't aware of were even possible. Whether Allah is telling the Prophet ﷺ that your heart aches, it's been 6 years since you've seen the Kaaba. Every day your heart hurts that there are idols being worshipped in the Kaaba, in the house of Allah. And Allah told him, Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. We're going to open a way for you into the Kaaba. And that's exactly what happened when the Prophet ﷺ marched in for the conquest of Mecca. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Fatir, Surah number 35, مَا يَفْتَحُ اللَّهُ لِلنَّاسِ مِنْ رَحْمَةٍ فَلَا مُمْسِكَ لَهَا. If Allah opens the doors of His mercy upon you, there's no one that can close them for you ever. So as we gather on this night and we pray on this night, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open the doors of His mercy upon us. We ask Allah to open the doors of His mercy upon the whole ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We ask Allah to open the doors of His mercy upon all of our brothers and sisters, especially those that are in need, those that are struggling, those that are oppressed. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open on this night, open the doors of His mercy upon all of us. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Jazakumullah khairan.
Khairan, Sheikh. Thank you so much for always sharing with us. To everybody here who's here, alhamdulillah, we're going to wrap up. We do have our qiyam prayers. I do want to also ask everyone to make dua for our brother Osman Farouk, who tragically passed away between last night and this morning from a car accident in the Virginia area. He was a beloved brother and a community member of Qalam and Roots at large. And I know that there's a lot of brothers here that are either related to him or close with him. And so we ask Allah Ta'ala to shower His mercy upon him on this odd night of on the last 10. Allah Ta'ala give his family strength. I can't imagine the loss. I can't imagine the suddenness. But we, at the end of our pain, we always understand that Allah Ta'ala will always give comfort to those who need it most. And we seek that from Allah Ta'ala tonight. Please remember him in your du'as, inshaAllah. So we have our qiyam prayer, inshaAllah, here from 12:30 to 1. Afterwards, inshallah, of course, people can stay for a little bit. We're generally open till 2 for the community, inshallah. So if you want to stay, make dua on your own, there's no problem there. The only request that we have, of course, is that if everyone can do their part in trying to help clean up, inshallah, so the space stays clean, and that our volunteers make dua for them as well. Our staff that is trying to keep the building as beautiful as possible for everybody to enjoy, that they can do the least amount of work as possible because they end up staying here till 3, 4, sometimes 5 in the morning. And so if you can help out, that'd be wonderful. Barakallahu feekum. Sheikh is going to head out. I'm going to head out. My babysitter for my kids is currently waiting to go and pray her qiyam. So I have to go and relieve her, inshallah. My wife is at Sheikh Omar's talk. So that's kind of always an interesting thing. Anyway, so why me, right? No, I'm joking. But that marriage is a rizq that Allah wrote for us, alhamdulillah. Okay, can't say the same for everyone. So I have to leave, inshallah, but I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.